My guest today is Freddie Fox, an English actor, director, and producer. Now, he is known for the roles as singer Marilyn in the BBC's Boy George biopic, Worried About the Boy. He also played James Leighton Masters in The Riot Club, Freddie Baxter in Channel 4 hit series Cucumber and Banana, and even Commander Pope in the historical film Black 47, and many other well-known roles. But he is here today to talk about his delightful romantic short film, The Painting and the Statue. Two lonely strangers meet across the crowded room, and it just takes one held look, one breathless moment to bring them completely alive, literally. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome filmmaker Freddie Fox and his new short film, The Painting and the Statue, to the show. Welcome, Freddie.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm honored to be here.
Well, I tell you what, I love the film, and I understand that you co-wrote The Painting and the Statue along with Tanya Reynolds, who also acts in the film as the painting. Where did the idea come from to create a story from the point of view of two material objects?
Well, I would love to give a really deep or highfalutin answer, but the truth is, it kind of came to me in the bath, as a lot of ideas, good ideas can do. But I've always had a fascination with old buildings, with artifacts, objet d'art, things, and as a child, I always kind of imagined what they might be like if they sprung to life and started talking to each other. I mean, it sounds a bit like Toy Story, right? But that's a fascination that's never really left me, a fascination with old buildings that's never really left me, and I wanted to tell a story from those points of view that would make people smile. That was really my main objective.
Well, it does just that. Now, did you get any inspiration from some of the films of Night at the Museum?
Ha! Night at the Museum, I did not, but it's a very good point, well made after the fact. I watched an interesting little Jean Cocteau short called "The Blood of a Poet," which is it got a lot of similarities to it. It's kind of darker than mine, but I love that. I mean, there's even that little Robert Zemeckis film that came out recently, where he kind of set the whole thing in one piece of land and watched that evolve over the millennia. It kind of has a feel of that too.
Well, I love the creation of the parts in the film, or parts or chapters, to show the passage of time. Why was this important?
Well, I think we have this phrase everywhere in the world. What would happen if the walls could talk? What have these walls seen over the centuries? Wouldn't it be interesting to know? And that's kind of what I wanted to evoke, because old buildings do that to you. They speak to you, and the room in question in the film is the main character, if you like. Um, so that's really what I wanted to try and capture. Yeah.
Well, one of the first things I noticed was the use of soft focus depicting the view from the painting and the statue. How did you achieve that soft focus effect?
Well, we chose very specific lenses that would give that slightly bendy ocular effect to give this idea that it was an eye, but without going into the full fisheye kind of image, because otherwise it's all that the viewer can see. And there's a lot that, because you have to play the whole story in just one frame or two frames. You have to be very specific with the blocking about where your actors are going to be at a certain moment, what piece of story is coming into focus and going out of focus, when the statue and the painting can tilt their focus to the background when it stays forward, what pieces of plot have to be blocked by the bodies of the actors in order that the painting can't see the statue and the statue can't see the painting. So it's quite theatrical in a way, and the lenses obviously gave an awful lot of character to the soul of the piece and to those two unseen yet all-seeing main protagonists.
It's funny that you mentioned the way that you had to block the shots, because you had to block them from the point of view of the object looking at the humans in the room.
Yeah.
And because when I was looking at it, even the like the statue, you really nailed the height of the camera shot looking towards the people in the room, or let's say the tourists coming through looking at all of the artifacts. I thought the blocking and the camera shots were absolutely fantastic.
Thank you very much. It was very simple, but to get it just right, so that you've got just the right piece of plot coming into the frame at exactly the right moment, was a very intricate thing. And the statue has this very specific position where his arm is held out, that has a very specific purpose at the end of the film. And so we had many different arms that would then be strapped to the camera that we could kind of twizzle and tweak to make sure that the shot from the painting's point of view and the statue's POV matched exactly.
I was kind of wondering how you did that because before, and we'll get to it in a moment, before the statue was turned, and when you're looking at the camera shot at the people in the room, I was wondering how you managed to get the hand at the bottom corner of the frame. And so what? They were just so was the actual statue, let me ask this, was the statue itself real or was it a prop piece?
The statue is, I mean, watching that thing come into being was just, it was an extraordinary experience for me. I was originally going to play the statue. And then I was like, I can't dance. So, and the statue has to, plot spoiler, the statue has to dance at the end. So, I thought I'd better get a really great dancer. So this dancer who I've admired for many years, Andy Monaghan, he dances with Matthew Bourne's company, big famous company over here in the UK. And I asked Andy if he'd be comfortable being scanned, wearing just the kind of fig leaf, if you like, to cover his modesty. He had to be scanned with a 3D hand scanner, so which takes about 40 minutes. So he had to hold a position pretty much totally still for 40 minutes, so they could build a three-dimensional virtual depiction of his body. They would then fill that in, the holes that didn't quite come out right would be filled in by a 3D graphic artist. They would then send that 3D model to a props creation company who would then make an entire exact model of Andy out of styrofoam, really hard packed styrofoam, which we would paint over to make it look like marble. And everybody, when we were on set, was handling this thing like it was the freaking crown jewels. You don't, like, careful, because if it breaks, we've only got one. We couldn't afford to make more than one. And then we had a spare hand to attach to the camera, which our grips rigged onto the camera that we could then tilt around to find exactly the right position of the statue's hand in the foreground of his own shot.
Oh, that is so cool because when I was looking at the statue, I'm like, okay, this is either real or this is a prop piece. So it was done so authentically, the audience is never going to know. And, but then that was the other thing, because when he does come to life,
Mm.
um, now I can see why the statue and then Andy look exactly the same. And that was the thing that I was looking at because when you're casting for the role, I guess the major requirement was you had to dance.
You had to dance, and yet, and why I love Andy, but also Matthew Bourne's dancers generally, his company, they're all actors who just happen to be ballet dancers. And so you've got to have somebody who understands the camera, what the camera's doing, is able to play across the space with Tanya when they're each doing each other's coverage for each other, and not be a kind of, wooden, I'm just good at dancing and forget the rest. So that was very, very important to me. And when I watched him do his dance, which was beautifully choreographed by a wonderful choreographer called Arthur Pitter, who I've worked with before, I started crying. I couldn't believe how beautiful it was. And that lovely thing that you get as a writer, where you write something down, you think you know what it's like, and then you hand it to people who are better at their jobs than you will ever be at yours. And they make it something transcendent, something special, something much, much better than you could ever have hoped for.
You know, when I first looked at the film poster,
Mm.
and then when I read the log line, and this is before I even started watching the film, I'm thinking this is going to be a very artistic, cinematic, emotional film. But then when I started to watch it, it was almost the complete opposite of what I got. And
Yeah,
which I thought was really cool because it was light, it was delightful, it was romantic. Why did you decide to go that way with it? Because when you think about the title alone, you could have gone a million different ways with the storyline.
I think I chose to do it that way because it's a reflection of my personality. Honestly, I, I, I think the world needs more comedy. I think the world needs better comedy. I think the world needs something refined and yet light because we live in pretty tough times. It feels like, or we're bombarded with bad news so much. I just wanted something that reminded people that everywhere you look, there are beautiful things to see. Even the stuff you would normally walk straight past, and it only takes doubling back and going, oh, hang on a minute, that's gorgeous. To make you go, that day was a good day, and that's kind of really the genesis of it, and that's kind of really, I think, a reflection of how I hope I look at life.
Well, I'm really glad you went that route with it because when it comes to short films every year,
Yeah,
the majority of the short films, and say you already know, they all lean to the dramatic and the dark and the sad.
yeah.
And I was talking to an actress friend of mine, and she's an Academy member, and she asked me, she goes, "Can you tell me why?" Because she's 90. Could you tell me why all of these filmmakers with short films, is there something wrong with them? Because everything is always dark and sad and dramatic. Is there any joy in their life? And so when I saw your film, I'm like, oh, she's gonna love this one
Uh,
because you bring joy. And I love the way that you injected humor into the scenes because the film became more human than I expected, less of a cinematic opera, so to speak. But I love the finished product, and um, I found the film, there was humor, but there was also, I guess, a sense of whimsy. Would that be correct to say?
Definitely, there would. Yeah, 100%. A little bit of whimsy, a little bit of melancholy sometimes, and there's a sort of there are moments of emotional resonance and sweetness that I hope, who knows, may bring a tear to the eye. But mostly, it's not about that. Mostly, as you say, it's about laughter and smiling and kindness and love over a long, long, long period of time. And I think I have an answer for you about why so many short films are so bleak. It's because they're the films that filmmakers would love to get made as features, but no one will ever pay for. And so it surprises me often because I'm like, short films are often your passport into making features, and this is the tone setting for your future work. And I'm like, guys, people don't want to. Yeah, it's great, have your hard, heavy stuff ready to go when you've made your first, second, third film, but most of your first film, people don't want to make it because no one's going to watch it most of the time.
Yeah, and I agree with it. I was talking to a filmmaker the other day, and I said the short film is the films that the studios won't make into features,
Yeah, yeah,
you
that's
know.
right.
But like you said, a short film is also showing the rest of the world your ability to tell a complete story in 20 minutes or less.
Yeah, that's
You
it.
know, and but you've got to tell me, Freddie, because you have a star-studded cast here.
Mm.
So, what was the casting process like? Because you're an actor, you've been in some very well-known productions. Was it easy on your side?
Well, I mean, it was so. I mean, look, I am the most blessed short film director ever to have stood behind a camera because this cast is incredible, and I wanted actors, as you will understand, having seen the film, who can transform into three, four different parts over the course of 20 minutes. I love movies like Doctor Strangelove and Kind Hearts and Coronets, where actors are really allowed, the Lady Killers, where actors can really, you know, show off their theatrical qualities as well as their cinematic ones. And so I got a casting director on board who I've known for some time, and I had my ideas, and he said, "I got way better ideas than this. So why don't we really take a punt and see if we can get Asim Chowdhury to play?" And I was like, "I don't know Asim. I have no connection to him." And he said, "Well, we'll find one." And I happened to be shooting a TV show with a friend of mine who'd worked with him, and he said, "I'll put you in touch with Asim." And I sent him the script, never even expecting to hear back. And within 2 days, he'd gone, "I love the script. I want to do it." Then some other friends who were closer to me, Mark Gatiss, I've worked with before, and I have huge admiration for in every respect as a man and an actor. And he kind of owed me a favor anyway. So he was a little bit easier. And then actors I'd never heard of before: Will Merrick, Hannah Onslow, people like their work I didn't know. I was introduced to by Harry, the casting director, and I was like, "Oh my god, how do we get these guys?" And he was like, "Leave it to me." And so I think that was the combination of it: a couple of long shots and a couple of closer to home.
Yeah, I love I love hearing filmmakers that are doing short films and they take the long shot. And they're looking at their script. They have this one actor or actress in mind. They're like, that person needs to, this is who I'm thinking of. And
Yeah,
they don't know them, they don't have no connections to them. And then some way, somehow, they pull off that filmmaker magic and it just happens. They get the actor they want, and the rest is history. But I love the cast in this one. And I really loved Fenella Woolgar because she played multiple parts in the film. And, but and what was magical about her part was that she started it, but she ended it.
exactly.
Now, was that
She had
on purpose?
Of course, yeah. She had to be the person to. She was the lady of the house who was in love with art, but who had a husband who was. I mean, this was all my backstory in my head when I was writing. She had a husband who didn't really care for it, didn't really have any artistic sensibility at all, but it mattered to her, so she brought them in. And then if you're watching really closely, she's got a bit of a cough and something's not quite right. And then the next scene, she's going to the doctors, and then boom, the next time you hear about her, she's dead. And so I wanted her, the art lover in 1850 or whenever it was, to be the art lover in 2024, who was now an Irish museum what tour guide. Yeah.
Yeah, and I watched it closely, and I noticed some of those things because I watched the film more than once. And when she said, "Oh, I just got to go see the doctor," and it was the second time around, I went, "Oh, okay," because back in that time, a simple little cough could be something extremely serious, like tuberculosis or something, you
Right, that
know,
was my yeah.
you
And then
know,
you
but
see you see Mark as an old man who's now become the he's the little boy all grown up now to an old guy about to die himself. He's still thinking of his mama and still remembering how she loved these pieces and how sad he was to see them being covered by dust sheets during the wartime. Yeah,
well,
I'm really pleased you noticed that she's the
well,
woman who brings them in and the woman who puts them together, same actor.
well, the other thing that I noticed too was when he was a little boy, he was wearing the red scarf, and then in that next part, he's older and he's wearing the red scarf. And I love the fact that you did use that little piece because I think it helped the audience to realize, oh, he's older now.
Mm-hmm.
And even in the dialogue, he was more like his mother appreciated the art. And I guess, was it his sister or no, I guess it was what, girlfriend? She was more like the old man that was like, I don't care about these artifacts.
Yeah, exactly. She just wanted to, have a, kiss. She just wanted to
Yeah.
kiss and eat. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's amazing what one piece of costume can do. It can, you need it. You need it to tell you who these people are because you don't have time to explain it to an audience when there's so much going on. So we're very lucky. We had an extraordinary BAFTA-winning costume designer who I've worked with before many times, and is a great friend. And we were very, very hot on the detail with that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Well, my goodness, because yeah, when I was looking at all five parts, all the wardrobe kept changing. How big a challenge was that?
I mean, you should have seen it. I don't, I can't, I couldn't really believe what was happening we were shooting it. We had a whole barn that we'd somehow managed to convince the estate that we were filming on to give us for next to nothing, to put in like 20 rails of costume, the kind of stuff you'd see on quite a big feature film. We would like, had costumes coming out of my ears. I had 7 makeup artists. I was like, they were all coming, they were being, of course, paid, but not much. They were there for the love. And I couldn't believe the production. It's actually, it made me complete. I had a little cry in the middle of the shoot because I was so overwhelmed with gratitude that people had come to give this idea life, just not for money, but because they believed in it and because they're just gorgeous people and great artists.
I loved in the first part, I loved Fenella's look. Very pale, has that look of the red around the eyes. And then when you see her in part 5, I mean, it is like day and night between the two. You're looking at a woman from the 1800s that really, if you look at her, you could see it's kind of like looking at those photographs that are done in sepia tone. That's
Mm,
what she looked like. And
yeah,
then in modern day, complete makeover, you
yeah,
know, and it just worked with her.
yeah. I'm so glad you felt that way. We when we were grading the film, I was very specific about wanting the 1850 sequence to feel like a sepia Lewis Carroll photograph. And then in the later tones, I wanted it to be much more bleached, much wider, much kind of more stark, if you like. And the costume, of course, helps that. She's wearing a lot of vibrant colors at the end, and it feels very modern. And at the beginning, she's got those lovely sepia beigey gowns, and it's a different time, and that's just great lighting, great DOP, great costume designer. Man, I was lucky with my team. I cannot tell you.
Well, Vanilla is the one who brings the statue and the painting together.
Mm,
And I love the scene in part 5 where she's getting ready to leave. She's ready to turn the lights out, lock up, and go home. But it's that moment. There's that one little. It's almost it's the spark in her that causes her to stop and then turn around.
mhm.
And I played that scene over a few times. I kept looking at it. I'm like, okay, I get the sense that she had a longing for love herself because
Mm,
she's a romantic at heart. And there
mm.
was just something inside her that made her turn around and do what she did.
You got it, man. You got it. She gives it this kind of the speech she gives in the scene before is her kind of treatise on romance for these objects, but also for herself. This idea of longing that is quite old fashioned nowadays, but actually, she's been around these objects for so long, taking disinterested kid after disinterested kid past them. No one really cares, but for her they mean something profound, and so then she has this little idea and thinks, oh, this is silly, I'll turn them back round again tomorrow morning. Little does she know what happens in the night. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people who are lovers of art, there's a sense of romanticism that can't be ignored. And I think that you captured that essence in this film in every way and very well done.
Thank you so much. That means so much, especially, I never expected when I made it that I'd be having a conversation with a great, film lover all the way over in America who would appreciate it in the way that I hoped. It means a lot to me. So thank you.
Well, you're very, very welcome. And I love the fact that when it comes to short films, I always look at pacing. And and I think the magic part of this film is the way that you had split it into 5 parts, which
Hmm.
I thought was really a genius move because I've never really seen that done in a short film, which actually made this film feel longer than a short, and that's a good thing. Because I love short films that give you the sense that, oh, I'm watching a feature film. And so this film moves from scene to scene so well.
Thank
It captures the audience's attention very easily because they're waiting to see what's going to happen next. So, in a way, and in a very subtle way, you kind of bait us to wait what's going to happen next. What group of people are we going to see? So, I just love the way that you did that.
That's really kind. We actually played it when we were in the edit. There was an idea that we might completely reorder it and start with Fenella's scene where she's talking the tour guide, the kids through it. And so you start the film with what the film is kind of about. And then the audience sort of know what the game is from the beginning. And we tried it, and I was like, this is not, there's a reason why I didn't write that, is because it's a kind of a slow tiptoe. This film tiptoes through time, and if you tell the audience what it's about immediately, they're bored by the end of scene three, because they're going, well, why are we watching these people do stuff? Where's the plot? And I was like, it's got to be much more delicate than that. So by the audience are going, what is this? What is this? Where are we? Okay, I see. And then she tells you what the film is, and then you go, okay, I was behind the eight ball, which is where you want the audience to be, and then they land at the right moment, and then you allow some space for a twist, which hopefully is satisfying.
Yeah, the number one pet peeve of mine when it comes to short films is the log line.
Yeah.
Because some people tell you the whole film in the log line. And I think that's even worse than telling them what the film is about in the very first scene. Because like you said, if you go into it already knowing, there's no magic there.
That's what I think. And short films have that real privilege of not having to be, formulaic. Like so often features are made into being. A short film can be a poem. I mean, a short film can be anything. So as long as your audience are intrigued and hooked, I think it's a real opportunity to play with the form a little bit. So I'm really glad you like that.
Yeah. Now there was something else I was looking at, and I have to ask because when I see a film, I know that behind the camera there's probably a ton of lights and things set up. But when I'm looking at your film, the beauty and the simplicity is you're filming the whole thing in one room.
Mm.
So the location makes it cost effective. But what I also noticed was how much of natural light did you use? Because a lot of the scenes, except for the one that was nighttime, it came across very natural and organic.
Mm. Yeah, it's a really great observation. I mean, that room that we were in, cost effective. I don't know about that, because it was, when you see the room, it's not like a standard living room. It's quite a thing. But it's the whole of one side of the room is a windows. I mean, huge Elizabethan bay windows. And I was saying to Ryan, the DOP, how are we going to do this on a small budget? I had a DOP before Ryan came onto it, who dropped off the project, who was quoting me kit lists that we couldn't. I mean, that would cost the whole budget of the film just to light it. And I was like, we can't do that. And he said, well, let's use it to our advantage. Let's make sure that the natural light becomes a, a real star player of the film, and then we'll tweak it with flags. We'll tweak it with the right HMI in the right place. We only got one or two, so let's make it our friend. And fortunately, the windows had these enormous blinds on them, just by chance. That especially the backlit ones, they had they had pre-built-in blinds, which we couldn't have afforded to put in ourselves. So we used those to our advantage as well.
Yeah, because when you look from the vantage point of the statue,
Mm.
you see the window on the left. Then
Mm.
you see all the windows at the top because I
Mm.
kept looking at it going, man, lighting or setting, just working with the camera alone. I'm looking at going, that's a nightmare because there's nothing worse than shooting near windows because you're afraid you're because even a DP knows you're afraid you're going to have blowout and
Yeah.
you've got to figure out how to tame natural light. But then when you get the shot from the painting, it's not difficult to work with. But that shot from the statue, I was just like, the lighting came across so soft and so because it worked with the soft focus that the lens was projecting as if it was the statue looking at everybody.
That's really our work, a really detailed observation. And actually, we were lucky because of the position of the building. The position of the building was not east west, I think it was north south. So we had kind of, we never got any full light through any of the windows throughout the whole day. So that was a bit of, God was on our side on that one. Plus the blinds for the backlight, that was hugely helpful. The one shot I was really proud of what the gaffer and DOP pulled together, which was something I dreamt up very shortly before we shot. Was I wanted to end the film going up to a night time on one window and pan across, and then daylight to happen out of another window, just like a kind of time lapse, but just in the space of a pan. And I was like, I don't want to cut. I don't want to do like a sneaky cut, off something, off a wipe of something. And they managed to, in the dead of night, get our only two key lights. One was the moon and one was the sun. And they managed to rig up a system to be able to fade moonlight down and bring up daylight through another window. So the last shot, as we introduce the tour guide coming back into the room before she makes her final discovery, is all done in one shot. And I think it's a beautiful shot. I was really.
I love hearing the magical backstories on the technical side on how some of these things are done because sometimes you just have to figure it out when
Yeah.
you're there because it's not like you can write it down and say this is what I would like to do. You won't know until you're actually there.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. And then we also had. Don't ask me how this happened, but we had such bad luck with two of our our original DOP had a family situation. He had to leave after the second day, so the steady cam operator had to step in for half a day. Then we got another DOP in for day three, but he couldn't finish on the Sunday, so we had to get the camera operator to finish. And then I had another DOP in the edit in the grade. So I had about 5 DOPs over the course of a 4 day shoot short film, and somehow because Ryan, the original DOP, had such clear notes and such clear vision on what he wanted, we managed to keep the continuity. I think of visual continuity together.
Wow, that was a big blessing in disguise.
Sure, sure. I don't know how it made it work, but actually, in some ways, we shot most of the big, difficult wides, setting the tone early on, again, just by chance. And then we went into the moonlit sequence at the end, which feels very different. So having a new DOP on it was not the end of the world. They weren't matching anything completely exactly. And then the first shot of the film, which is introducing the two characters of the painting and the statue in just one shot, that was lit by the the Steadicam operator, who's I've known for years, and that was weirdly the hardest shot in some ways to light because, as you correctly pointed out, we had really hard light coming through one of the windows, which we weren't able to control. So we had to be kind of sneaky and sneak into the owner's garden and put up flags in places that we weren't going to have them. I mean, short filmmaking.
Well, when and ladies and gentlemen, if you're going to be at HollyShorts to see the premiere of the painting and the statue, you have to pay close attention to the very first scene. I'm talking the moment the film starts. Don't be looking anywhere else but the silver screen because that's going to set the tone for the rest of this film. And I have to ask Freddie, how long did it take to create the paintings with Tanya Reynolds in them?
Oh wow, that was another joy of creativity. I was like, I said I'd been working on a TV show called The Great as an actor, and we had an amazing art department on that. Lady called Jean Wong, who had been recreating all these portraits in Catherine the Great's court. And I said, look, can I take your number? Because I may want to do this thing with it. And she talked me through what the process would have to be. And so we got Tanya down to the studio where we shot The Great just as they were wrapping up all the final season. So we were taking props left, right, and center, borrowing stuff, buying stuff from them. And we got Tanya in the corner of a room, dressed up as this kind of, pre-Raphaelite nymph. And we had the stills photographer from House of the Dragon, which is a show that I work on as an actor, come and do the stills of her in the position that I wanted, that had been very thoroughly researched to be accurate to the kind of paintings of the time, but also fulfilling the plot I needed her to fulfill in her positioning. So we took lots of pictures of her in two different poses with two different styles. I won't spoil the end.
Yeah, don't do that.
You know why.
Yeah.
And then we put in the Gene got sent the images. A graphic artist got sent the digital images. We put a digital backdrop in to make it look kind of gothic and sort of overly romantic. We then treated that image to make it look more like a painting. And then Jean got the photograph printed onto canvas and then painted over the photograph to make it look. I mean, she spent tens of hours on it to make it look exactly like a pre-Raphaelite painting. So it was a photograph turned into a treated photograph, turned into a painted, treated photograph.
So where are the paintings now?
They're in 2 rooms that way. They're going to go up in my office.
I absolutely love that. Now, the other thing that I noticed in this film, so you have to tell me about the creation of the music score because it's very Renaissance.
That's very kind of you to ask. The composer we were lucky enough to work with was called Noah Margalit, and she was introduced to me by my lovely producer Karima. And I wanted it to be. I loved a lot of Wes Anderson scores, and there was a bit of that. I liked the idea of having a sort of a lute or a mandolin, something that was evocative of period, but that had a cheeky quality to it, a naughtiness to it. And then I wanted voices to be in there. I originally imagined the whole score just to be voices of singing, but we simplified it because we didn't have the budget. And so we just had a male voice and a female voice just singing out to each other, calling out to each other across the space and trying to get each other's attention, never quite succeeding until eventually they succeed.
I love that. So what was it like working with Slick Films?
Slick are amazing. I mean, amazing. A gift you couldn't believe. Chris Overton, who runs Slick, and I worked together on a movie a long time ago called Pride. We stayed in touch. He won an Oscar. I went on to admire what he did and revolutionizing the world of short filmmaking in the UK. And he said to me, we bumped into each other at a short film festival, and he said, look, if you've got an idea, let's think about working together on something. And I said, well, I do kind of have this idea. And I said, I've got a first draft, which was a complete lie. I hadn't written the first draft. And he was like, well, send it to me. I was like, oh, okay, shit. Excuse my language. And I was like, and so I knocked out a first draft really, really fast because I'd had the idea. And he was the conduit, or the kind of the energy behind getting me to get my ass in gear and do the thing.
Yeah, Chris is an awesome guy.
Yeah, he's incredible.
And I mean, what he's built and created with Slick Films is something that no one has ever done.
No. It's amazing. And he's made it, not only has he made a business out of short films, but it must be responsible, I would have thought, over the period of just having set up the company, but let alone the 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years into the future. He will be the one of the main reasons the British film industry is in a really healthy position in 20 years' time, because his platform and company are giving filmmakers the opportunity to have their starts and then develop their talents in a world where there is diminishing resources for short and independent movies.
Yeah, I keep telling people that the short film is going to be the future feature film because we live in a world of short attention spans, and with the changing of media and streaming platforms, I think there is going to be a lot of power in the short film. And just like what you and I had said earlier, the short film is the films that the studios won't make into a feature.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. You're completely right. It's prescient, and um, I hope we can still make short films that don't feel short. That feel full.
Yeah, a beginning, a middle, and an end, and leaves the audience wanting more. But now you're an official selection at Holly Shorts. So, is this making it your official premiere?
This makes it our official world premiere, and I'm over the moon about
I love that. So when the audiences finally see the painting and the statue, what would you love for them to take away from it?
it. I'd like them to smile. That's all I want, really. I want them to smile and talk about the film for a few days after they've seen it, going, oh, yeah, that thing, or oh, that Easter egg that I didn't notice maybe initially, but now I realize. And I hope they just enjoy themselves and appreciate the amount of work that went into creating that sense of play and naughtiness and joie de vivre. And maybe one day they'll go back in home, they'll look at a little piece of pottery, or they'll look at a painting that in their parents' room or something, and go, I wonder what that thing's seen in its time.
Exactly. I mean, it's the paintings, it's the artifacts, it's the statues that are really the flies on the wall that have seen and heard things that we will never know.
Well, sure, and also, like, we've all had the experience of going through an old attic or moving house and boxing stuff up, and then you open them up months or years later, and suddenly that thing that you'd forgotten about, whatever it is, that photograph or that present a loved one gave you, before they died, or you broke up or whatever, suddenly that thing is not just you know the sum of its parts. It's so much more than that. It's an emotional tidal wave of memory and life that I think can be contained in the smallest, most inanimate things.
You
So
know, Freddie, you have a little bit of an old soul.
yeah, yeah, I'm about 110 under this face.
I love the younger generation that can look back and appreciate history and appreciate, and even in film, to look back and understand where the whole industry came from,
Yeah, yeah.
and grab parts of the golden eras of Hollywood and hopefully bring them back to life into modern day. And there's a bit of that, I think, in the painting and the statue. And what are you working on in the future?
Well, it kind of you to ask, and continuing that theme of kind of being fascinated by my history. I'm an actor. My world has been theatre as much as it has been cinema, and I'm making a documentary at the moment with Kenneth Branagh's company about British theatre in the 20th century, and how it shaped Britain in ways that we have either sometimes forgotten, or perhaps we never knew. So that's one little piece I'm working on, and then acting. I'm currently shooting the new season of House of the Dragon. So
Oh, fantastic. And that's the thing that I should have mentioned in my intro about you, is the House of the Dragon, because I know that's an extremely popular series. And so are you getting ready to film the next season?
we're in the middle of it. Actually, I've got to get up I've got to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. So not too many hours time to go and shoot my next day on that, which is I'm having a lovely time doing.
Well, I can't wait to see the new season. And ladies and gentlemen, the painting and the statue is about two lonely strangers meet across a crowded room, but it takes just one held look, one breathless moment to bring them completely alive, literally. I loved this film. Completely unexpected, just like when two people meet and their spirits and their hearts come alive when they first lay eyes on each other. The painting and the statue is a slow, subtle waltz of two entities in the same room, brought to life by one person who believes in love and believes in romance. The film is as magical as both the painting and the statue seeing each other for the first time. Love, well, it's an emotion so powerful it can't be ignored, and it can awaken the hearts and the minds of those who feel they will never find it. But in this case, one person's intuition leads to two people from different centuries finding each other. Now, I won't tell you how it ends, so you'll have to see for yourself at the HollyShort Film Festival. And this is one film we will have to keep an eye on, as this could go a long way this award season. And Freddie, I want to thank you so much for sharing some of the insights and backstory on getting this film made with me today.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. I've enjoyed myself a lot.
Thank you so much. And ladies and gentlemen, you can catch all of the Bond on Cinema interviews at bondoncinema.com. Check out our Prime show, our YouTube channel, and yes, you can listen to all of the interviews from the filmmakers from around the world on Spotify, iTunes, and Audible, and so many more. So again, you're either going to see me at the movies or from the red carpet.